Dr. Gina Dorfman has joined us to discuss the ultimate CEO. Very interesting topic that we're going to talk about. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Dorfman.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Dorfman, I'd like to quickly introduce you to the audience. You have many talents and you wear many hats. You're a practicing dentist, you're an entrepreneur, you're a published author, innovator, a podcaster. It's overwhelming to actually read all the things you have done in the 2 decades you've been at it. Most importantly, also, you're a mom of two, Mila and Lenny, and you're married to Kent, and two more family members of yours are a German Shepherd and a recently acquired poodle puppy named Flash, like the superhero. Wow.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting on how you have been able to manage your practice, your innovations, your company, your podcast. Very, very admirable stuff. You graduated in 2000, and you have interviewed some of the greatest minds of dentistry. And so you're a well of knowledge that we can probably learn a lot from. And that's why I wanted to invite you on the show today. So
Thank
you
you.
also present at various dental meetings, Townie meeting. You're invited to speak on various topics pertaining practice management. So you're actually a perfect person to address a lot of our questions today.
Thank you.
So you started with a private practice, founder of Dentistry of Kids and Adults in north of Los Angeles. And you expanded to another location, and recently you got recruited also as a faculty for the Dental Success Network.
I have been, yes.
And the innovation that I was talking about earlier was Yappy, a paperless dental software system you built from scratch.
We
Now with over 60 employees, I believe, at this time you guys are working with.
right.
And in your free time, besides playing with the dogs and the family, hiking, reading, that's quite interesting. So let's jump right into it. Please tell me a little bit about your motivation to start your own practice when you got out of school.
Well, actually, I got into school to start my own practice. I worked. I worked for a dentist years ago. Well, not years ago. I don't want to age myself necessarily, but date myself. But I worked for a dentist who I thought had an interesting practice model. And it was in my mind that one day I would own this type of a practice. He had several associates who were general dentists, but he also had some associates in different specialties. And so the patients could go from we were seeing patients from 0 to 109, and we could do just about anything from ortho to pedo to implants. This was early 90s, so there were too many implants, but we were starting to place implants, wisdom teeth extractions, endo. It was a great practice. It was in the heart of Los Angeles, very busy practice. I believe he took some HMOs at the time, which was never my plan to do in my practice. But I like the concept. And the reason I like the concept is I felt that it was really comfortable for the patient not to have to go from one practice to another. And I also enjoyed the practice concept from the standpoint of having life-work balance, because I know that a lot of dentists, especially female dentists, struggle with working full-time, raising a family. I know some doctors who teach and they travel, maybe do consulting, maybe write books, and they want to be able to do all those things and have a full-time practice. And sometimes it's challenging. And plus the economics are always in favor of maybe a group practice model. And so when it's done correctly and when there's no conflict between the owners, if it's a partnership. And so the idea appealed to me, and I thought that this is the kind of a practice that I'm going to have once I graduate from dental school, which is what I
Wow. Very several good points that you've raised. So you took the steps of associating with another colleague out of town school to gain some, maybe not the bad habits, but also the good knowledge that you could get from all of the extra specialties, so you could eventually start your own practice. It's a very good model. And I also like the idea of having multiple doctors own multiple practices together. But this is a whole different model than what we are encountering in the marketplace with the third-party management groups that are running, 2, 3, 4, 500 offices, and sort of don't have the best track record in a short period of existence. So you came out, you worked in those different departments, you gathered the knowledge. That's what we usually recommend a lot to our colleagues. I did the same exact thing. Actually, I associated for 6 months before I purchased my first practice with a senior doctor and learned how to do extractions better and do the endo better, and was a curious little bee um, at that time, and it helped a lot. And I also kept the associate around for a while. But once I got in there, I realized, and I'm sure you did the same, that it wasn't anything like what we were taught in school, and we didn't have any business acumen. But the right thing was to do to pursue your own practice. And then what happened? How many years did you practice before you went gangbusters and all these activities?
So the software company, we kind of started to write code in 2008, and my practice was started in 2002. So that's about 6 years that I started my practice. I expanded to another location. I was about to sign a lease on a third location. This is around 2008, 2009, which was not a great year to start a business by any means, but
Yeah.
it worked out for us. But you mentioned something important. You mentioned the corporate dentistry, and here's the thing. And one of the things that I like about my business model, which is basically, we have a large practice. I have 10 chairs in the practice. We're open 6 days a week. So again, access to care. Patients can be seen in evenings. Patients can be seen during holidays, like Mondays, President's Day, what have you. Patients can come in on weekends, so that this is convenient. Everything is done in the same place. The insurance is easy to manage because we know what was billed for one specialty to another. If a patient comes in and they need a tooth pulled, they need to consult with endo or with implantologist. We can do it for them in house. We have, we can do a 3D X-ray for them. We can, everything is done in one place, one visit. We can quote them fees right away. So it's great for patients, but it's also great for the dentist. And the most important thing, when you graduate from dental school nowadays, you graduate with a huge load and you still don't know anything. And I remember that moment graduating from dental school. I was just, dangerous enough with the handpiece to create some damage, some iatrogenic damage. I didn't know how to do dentistry. I had some concepts, I knew how to, extension for prevention, GV Black, I knew dental history, fluoridation, that kind of stuff. But, I could make a complete mess with glass ionomer, get it all over my walls, my ceiling, my overhead light. But I really did not know how to practice dentistry. That came with practice, that came with even confidence. When you first get out of dental school, you don't know anything, you don't know anything. Presenting treatment plans is tough. You need a mentor. And this is where this is the issue, and this is the only issue with private practice dentistry, is that we don't provide opportunities for other doctors to graduate and to go into practice with someone else that they can learn from. And this is where I feel my practice is a good place for a new doctor or a relatively new doctor, because we're able to provide that mentorship. We're able to kind of hold their hand and my door is always open. If they have a question, I'm not going to stand over them and monitor what they do. I'm not going to insist that they do things my way. Autonomy with doctors is extremely important, but I want to provide a place where someone can safely learn without making another $600,000 investment into building their own practice. And most of us don't have any business skills. This is what we've learned, right? When we graduated, we started the practice, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's a business. We're running a business. We have payroll. We have, city regulations. You practice in California as well, right?
Yeah, I'm in Palm Desert.
You in Palm Desert. Okay. So, I mean, in California, of all places, you got to know the employment landscape. One small mistake can land you in a lot of trouble. And so it takes time to figure all this out. And it's nice to be able to have a private practice where I can do things the way that I like to, and no one is telling me to practice otherwise. And I can have a young doctor come in and they can do things their way and yet benefit from a mentorship.
Yes, but the way you're doing it is hands-on. You're there on the facility, working with the doctor in multiple practices, even two or three if you were to have a multi-practice location. That's a completely different scenario than you owning all the assets, dumping all the charts on the doctor, and having a floor supervisor telling them what they need to be doing, employing and providing all the materials. So that's a whole different ball game. On the exterior, it looks the same because an office got the dentist name on it. But what happens chairside, it's very prudent. Would you agree that it's very prudent that the dentist has a decision making ability? And yeah,
Critical. It is absolutely critical. The dentist has the ultimate decision over anything clinical. So, an office manager can say, you know what, this is how we're going to address this financial aspect of whatever. Or, they can say, this is the assistant that I'd like to recommend to work with you chairside while this other assistant may be working with a hygienist. But all of the clinical decisions have to be on a dentist. And you know what else I don't have in my practice? I don't have anything on the wall that tracks any of my associates' production. I mean, they can look at their numbers. I can look at their numbers.
so you don't start the day by a morning huddle and say today we have to produce $5,000, or you guys are gonna be in trouble.
We have a morning huddle. We have a morning huddle. I think that's important to get
Yes.
together and talk about the day. But no, I mean, there's no production. There's no incentive to do anything other than doing the right thing. And I always talk about doing the right thing, whether it's a small thing like, the patient has a $20 balance because of something that we made a mistake. Do we go after the patient, or do we just let it go and save the relationship with the patient? What is the right thing to do to a clinical, what is the right thing to do in this situation? And I think that most of the right decisions that I've made started with the question, what is the right thing to do? And not what is the most profitable thing to do or what is the most comfortable thing to do. A lot of times the right decision is not a comfortable decision, or not, or maybe not even profitable decision. But if you keep doing the right thing, the profits will kind of take care of themselves. At least I've always believed that to be the case.
Yeah, if you take care of the other person's needs in business, your needs usually get taken care of.
Right.
And you said something very admirable, and that's the doctor in you, because when you make a decision about the care of the patient, you take into consideration who your best assistant is, what the best material is, what time you're going to be able to perform that procedure the best. And on it goes of all the things that trickle essentially, not what the insurance company said, what they'll pay for, but what the patient really needs. That's how you present your treatment plan. But it just is impossible to create that environment when a third party that's unlicensed has control of operations. And that's where the conflict comes into play. And there's no other solution but to have true doctor ownership like yourself, if our colleagues wanted to own multiple practices and have associates. So thank you for clarifying that. That's a very, very good point that also a lot of the public servants that are involved with the entire issue with the management companies don't understand the change in hand that there is between a dentist wanting to own multiple offices versus a management company wanting to own the clinician versus providing services a la carte as they should be doing.
Well, there are a couple of things. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but since we're on this subject, there are a couple of things that I kind of wanted to mention, and it goes back to something that we actually started talking a little bit earlier before we went live with this. One thing is that a lot of times when DSOs present their case, so to say, they talk about the economics, right? So they'll say, okay, we have the buying power. Okay, so we have 500 practices across the nation. So we have the buying power, and they'll say, well, the doctor is making all of the clinical decisions, but we have the buying power. Well, first of all, with the buying power, a lot of times comes a clinical decision, right? And I'll give you an example of digital dentistry. Now, we scan. We don't take impressions in my practice anymore.
Right.
Once in a while, I guess we have to take an impression for something, but for the most part, we scan everything. So I'm a big fan of digital, but
Right.
the DSO makes that decision. And if the dentist is not ready or not happy with that decision, there's nothing that dentist can do. We've got a CEREC and we have a goal of 50 crowns. Go get them, Tiger. I mean, that's how it works, right? So with the buying power comes the clinical decision. But here's the funny thing about the buying power. A DSO can save 30% on supplies, hypothetically. Let's say with Shine, right? So I buy from Shine. I know my prices because I have a very large operation for solo practice. I probably get somewhat of a better price than maybe, dentist next door to me. But I know a DSO typically boasts that they have a huge buying power, like, saving 30%. But that's saving 30% of something that shouldn't be more than 6% in the practice anyway. I mean, our supply budget really should be about 6%, not more. It can go down to 4%. And using a friend of mine owns a company that helps order supplies online, Zen Supplies, and with that company, they're really budget oriented, preventing waste and buying just the right amount of supplies at the time that's needed. And so there are other ways to save on supplies. But again, we're talking about saving 30% of 6% of a total overhead. Well, the staff expense in California could be over 30. And then you're paying DSO 16% off the top, right? So yeah, they're saving you 30 of 6% on the buying power. And that sounds very attractive. And that's the only thing that I keep hearing. Well, join the DSO because you'll save money on supplies, stick to Shine.
Yeah,
There are other ways to stick it to Shine, but at the same time, you're taking 16% off the top and you're paying, I don't know, someone is going to listen to this and I'm going to find like a fish head in my bed in the morning. We're talking bad things about DSOs.
No.
It's the case. It's more of a hook, a bait and switch, if you will, because after that, yes, you save 30% on the 6%, but the rest of it is controlled by the decision makers, and that's not the dentist.
This whole idea of taking 16% off the top has been challenged. Any enumeration of the top has been challenged in many different courts in the past, because what it is a fee splitting between essentially a doctor and a non licensed entity. But again, you're making a very good point. That's the latest structures I've seen in these bigger corporations. And leverage purchasing power today by leveraging technology, such as companies such as Amazon and eBay, and there's other areas you can go net 32 where you can get a decent dealings, but ultimately it's not the biggest chunk of our practice overhead. And another response to that 16%, on national average, we're looking at what, 65 to 70% overhead in your practice. So when you have to give up 16% to this group, and then 10% to care credit, and or 5%, depending on how you structure this thing, you're not going to be left with much if you're not running a super lean operation as it is. So it's a very painful situation having to give up that kind of earned income and equity to a third party that doesn't really contribute as much. In my opinion, if you have a good office manager and a good team, and you build a good team, you can achieve the same kind of environment that you're given at those and reinvest in your business as the earnings come up to get the technology that they pride themselves on having. But the good thing is when they want to go and buy CTs, they have to buy CTs for 500, 400 offices. It's not a small decision. And then they got to sell it somehow to the hedge fund they took the money from. It's for us, it's a lot easier to maneuver and negotiate with companies. And what I did for my CT is I talked to the company and they gave me a year to even start making payments on it by getting into a contract with them, and that worked out really good. So we got some maneuverability and We can move a lot faster than our friends. So,
Pivot,
systems building.
pivot. It's small. When you're small and when you're the decision maker, you can pivot and make a decision much quicker.
Yes, that's a good thing. If you haven't been involved with the community and those things helps us a lot. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about these our competitors. They organized and they use system building, so everything is cookie cutter, customized, standardized, centralized. And how can we, as private practitioners, where we are the ultimate CEO of our own practices, build systems to address problems? Is that something that you took out of your morning huddles and made protocols out of every time, or what? How did you approach this?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I did. And one of the things that I actually lecture on is building a practice that runs without you, not around you. Not that doesn't mean that you're not in the practice while the practice is running. I mean, you could be running between hygiene rooms, but the idea is that we create systems in our practice that that run the practice. And this is I didn't come up with the concept. I think it was Gina Wickman who said, no, it was, Michael Gerber who said, you hire the people that run the practice or run the systems, and systems run the business, right? And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I've done in my practice. We have systems. We have, it's funny because I lecture and I say, okay, I stand in front of a huge room, not huge. I mean to say like 10, it's not a rock concert, but like I stand in front of a room full of dentists and I say, okay, by show of hands, how many people here have job descriptions for employees? Now I'm not talking about 4-inch binders with systems like I have in my practice. I literally have, so it's like 16 inches of systems.
Right.
But, I'm asking something simple, job descriptions. And a few hands go up. I'm like, no written job descriptions? No. And when they do, a lot of times the job description is written around the person who's had this job for years. Okay, so talk to me about your training. Talk to me about how often do you close your office to train or retrain your team? Well, we can't close the office. We've got to see patients. Because a lot of doctors look at that non-clinical time as waste of time. It's an empty chair. And I get it because you have bills to pay, but this goes a long way into filling those chairs. When you take someone who's answering the phone and the phone is like, this is your door into the practice, right? This is the first experience that someone has with your practice. When a typical dentist hires someone, how soon, how much training do they get, and how soon before they get on the phone? 1 day, 2 days, a week? No, 1 hour. Like, okay, you walk in, clock in, here's the phone, go answer it. And we go, okay, well, someone has years of experience. They work somewhere else answering the phone there, another dental practice. Do we know anything about the dental practice? What if it was the worst run operation ever? What if they did everything wrong? And sometimes I hear, I'm in the on social media a lot. I'm in the community. Sometimes I talk to practice administrators and assistants, and I hear things that make me go like, no, this is not, we don't want to say this to patients. So this is not the way we do this. And there's a lot of misinformation there. And the misinformation is coming from people that have been in dentistry for years. That's all they know. That's all they know. They've never learned. They've never become better at it. And it's not really, I can't blame them, because they're an employee. It's up to the practice leader to help them gain the education and structure their business. And for me, it's all very simple. You start with a vision. When I started my practice, there was a vision. And when I hired people after I first started the practice, I didn't communicate my vision. I did what everyone else is doing. I didn't get, it's not like I wasn't born with all this. I didn't come up with any of this. I've learned this. And here's another thing. We keep talking about DSOs. I mean, why do we like DSOs? Because we don't have to worry about the business side of dentistry. This is what they're telling us. Oh, don't worry. We'll do the business part. You just do what you love. You take care of patients. We'll take care.
Let's handle the money. Everything is going to be okay.
Yes. But here's the thing, business, you can learn this. It's just like any other skill. I think endo is hard. Molar endo is really hard. Running a business is not that difficult. You just have to learn a couple of concepts. So you start with a vision, you share your vision with your team daily. You have some core values. I mean, this is your culture. This is what culture is all about, right? You have some core values that are important to you, and every decision in your practice has to be made through that lens. Does that
That's
agree? Right?
that is the fact of the matter, and it's very good that you clearly put it out there. And there is no real other way. If you're in the business and you're running a practice, you got to be the CEO of it, and that's where the buck should stop, because you're responsible for your actions at the end of the day. And in a DSO setting, for example, when things go bad after pushing people to produce more and more, they point the finger at you, and you're in trouble because the boards are only going to care of who touched that patient at the end of the day.
Well, look
Uh,
what happened with this case. I don't know much about it. I just heard about it. A dentist, I believe here in California, got in trouble with the board over something related to the Smile Direct Club. Like I said, I don't know the story, but obviously the dentist was just doing the clinical part. Nowhere in that story said the Smile Direct Club is in trouble,
no, of
right?
course not.
It's a dentist, and that's as ultimately the issue with DSOs. And, I'm sure that some are better than others, but ultimately we need to learn this stuff. If we're going to run a business, we have. If you're going to do endo, you're going to take endo,
No,
right? Same thing with business. You're going to run a business, take a few courses, read some books, listen to some podcasts. There are really great business podcasts out there. There are a lot of people who are very successful in this field, and the beauty of this is they're openly sharing about this. I was a townie since I saw that you had an interview with Howard Mann, who I consider him my friend and my mentor, and I absolutely love Howard.
I was with him a couple of weeks ago in LA, actually.
Oh,
It's a great guy.
I mean, he's absolutely incredible. His energy, and he's so incredibly smart and honest and funny. And, I every time I talk to him, it's like this, charge of energy. But like, look at all the stuff that he's put out there, business related, all of the books that he's written. I've learned the business of dentistry. I've learned from the 30-day MBA.
Oh,
I,
the
you know,
old one.
yeah, I had it
Okay.
on like not the VHS tapes, but the cassette tapes, right? And listening to it in the car. I remember driving through Illinois, and I had no idea what Illinois was. I thought like Chicago, right? But I remember driving through this countryside, listening to 30-day MBA on like some really old Buick, like the old like a cop car.
Oh, I lived in Illinois for 15 years. I know what you're talking about.
All right, so
A lot of variety of corn and beans and all of that good stuff.
and it's
Uh,
funny because I remember asking my husband, I said, what are those big things that look like UFOs on legs? And he's like, those are, irrigation devices. I never
oh
said,
yeah,
city girl. I had no idea.
must have been a good listen to Howard. So now you are here. Now you have almost, I'd say, a little bit over 20 years actually now, right? Experience.
Yep.
And now you are passing on your information to colleagues. Do you do courses outside of conferences?
I do not. Maybe one day. I don't know. It's one of the things that I haven't done yet. So
You'd make a great mentor. I mean, it's phenomenal to listen to someone that has a family of two kids. I have two kids too, and I know what goes into that, how much time and effort that takes. To have not only patients and practice and associates, and it's amazing. So let's get into this. So you build this technology company. This is the entrepreneur part of you, and you work on. Tell me what your take is on systems building for all of the headaches that we encounter, like recalls, reminders, people that fall through the schedule, materials ordering, the no-shows, the thank you notes that patients appreciate that you remember them. How can we leverage technology with Yappy or similar to take those burdens off the front desk and create a more lean system?
Excellent question, and also loaded because there's so much I can say about this. So let's start from the beginning. Dentistry is a relationship business, right? It's about it's about someone coming in to your practice, and then, again, we were talking about DSOs. You can't have a relationship with a big corporation, right? But you have relationships with people, and any DSO they can figure out the way that they can do both is probably going to be the only one that survives this bubble of DSOs that is probably coming to an end very quickly.
Thank you for that prediction.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna start shorting them.
No, actually, I spoke to Dr. Blatchford, Dr. Christensen, Dr. Williams, and countless other leaders that think that it's a bubble. That's just flat out what they tell me in the podcast. So
I agree. So we'll see. We'll see. But that's my feeling as well. And it's not just a feeling. Let's just say it's an educated hunch. Knowing history of DSOs, history of bubbles, history of like a almost like an what's it? I don't want to say Ponzi scheme, but essentially, money, more money, more money, and at some point, someone is going to be holding a very empty bag.
yes, and it's unfortunately going to be our colleagues that bought into that idea.
Yes, and I have to tell you, one of my classmates that I graduated with after I started my practice, she reached out to me and she said, it looks like you're doing really well in your practice. I'm looking into doing this partnership with this DSO. And, what are your thoughts? And she gave me some performers and I responded, I'm like, okay, let me look into this. So I looked at the numbers and I gave her this 9-page report. This is 2004, maybe, right? And I gave her this 9-page prediction of why she shouldn't do it.
Wow.
And then we kind of fell apart because she did it. And I kind of knew, like, when I didn't hear back from her, I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. We're still very close friends, but this is what she ended up doing. And I spoke to her recently where she called me. She's like, okay, how do I get out of this? Because this isn't working anymore. And so unfortunately at this point, 20 years later, it's a little bit more difficult, but let's go back to the question that you asked.
The systems that they have built that has allowed them to prosper this far.
And what
are your recommendations on those?
We can build those in our practices because it's a relationship based business, which means that anything that requires a relationship is human based. Anything that doesn't require a relationship can be outsourced or can be done by a machine. For example, appointment reminders. My company, one of the things that we do is we confirm appointments by mail, by text message. Us and 45 other companies in dentistry provide this kind of service. And a lot of times patients feel like maybe it is, we customize the message to where we hope that they feel it's a little bit more personal. But the reality is a computer is sending out a lot of messages confirming appointments. And I've heard some dentists say, well, maybe people want more personalized message. Maybe they want a phone call. Not really. They don't want a phone call because they want convenience, right? The phone rings. I have to pick it up. I have to talk to someone. It's never during a good time. I'm either at my kid's pediatrician appointment or my son's soccer game, or I'm at work, or I'm seeing a patient. I missed the call. Now I have to call them back. It's a headache, right? But when I walk into the door, they greet me by name. And the reason they greet me by name, because Yappy has, we have this iPad that allows us to take pictures of the patients when they fill out their paperwork. So, and the paperwork is on an iPad. There's no scanning, no shredding, no data entry. So a patient fills out paperwork online or on an iPad, and all of that
Do you
information.
provide the iPad, or is that something
We
that
don't. We don't provide the iPad.
you get the okay?
Yeah, so the dentist, but we provide training, we provide all of the resources. We actually we like to make the process as seamless as possible for the dentist onboarding. We could provide an iPad, but really, there's so many different options, and
Sure.
um,
Sure.
and it doesn't require a lot of memory. It doesn't need to have like a phone service, so it's a very inexpensive part of the whole deal. But here's the thing. Um, the front office team member doesn't have to be entering data. She doesn't have to scan. She doesn't have to shred. I always ask. I was at the CDA and I was at the booth for a couple of hours, and team members were coming in. And for some reason, I wanted to ask everyone, "Do you like scanning?" And they look at me like I just landed from Mars. They're like, "No, what? We have the scan pile in our practices, right?" So it eliminates the scan pile because there's no scanning. All of the consents, all of that. But what it does is that allows that team member who used to be sitting there with a phone here. I mean, the front office is like an octopus, right? One hand is here because we're on the hold with United Concordia with Delta, and then the patient walks in and we're waving at them while we're typing something. Just imagine the amount of stuff that falls through the cracks. Right. Remember that letter that she's supposed to sign, or postcard that says, "Hey, it was nice seeing you today." When is she going to do it? She's retyping, deciphering. Is this a Q or a G? Like, retyping someone's email address into this is waste. This is where the software can help leverage things. I was talking about Zen Supplies earlier, which is my friend's company. Again, they automate the process for you. You set up sort of ordering rules. It keeps track of your inventory. That's beautiful. I mean, how many offices have a closet somewhere with 2 boxes of expired light body material? Everyone has thousands of dollars of wasted supplies. Forget saving $30. 30% of the 6% supply budget with the DSO. How much money have you wasted on expired cement because you bought in bulk, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So this is where you use technology. But the personal attention is recognizing the patient when the patient walks in. I always make fun of, when you go to a doctor's office, everyone has a sign-in sheet, right? And what does a sign-in sheet do? We come in and I sign Gina Dorfman. What time was your appointment? 10:30. What time did you show up? 10:30. I mean, how often does a patient actually come in 15 minutes earlier to fill out paperwork? They never do, right? So 10:30. Which doctor are you seeing? Dr. Lee. Why? That information is on the software. Why are we asking patients to fill it out? And then we peel off that little sticky label. And what do we do with that? We can't shred it, but we have to. The patient's name is on it. So do we roll it in a little bowl? I talked to one practice, or I talked to one seminar, and I said, "What do you do with these things that you peel off, that HIPAA compliant sign-in sheet?" And one doctor raised their hand and he said, "We put them on a piece of paper with the date on it, and we file it by date." And I'm like, why? Who looks at this?
Sure. I know exactly what you're talking about. The scanning is an issue. I'm still scanning some things, but most of it is done on a tablet for us as well.
You're going to scan some things. I mean, it's not completely avoidable, but my point is that you create systems. You go back, you look at everything that you do, and you create systems. Here's how you create system. Everything you do is a system, right? The way the patient signs in is a system. So you document it, and the easiest way is, you take your phone and you talk into a phone, record a video describing this process, a small process, signing in, right? And then you write it down, and then you look at it and you say, okay, what's inefficient about this process? Well, obviously that peel off sticky thing is inefficient. Retyping information is inefficient. So now we need to change this system by removing the inefficiencies. There's some things that don't need to be done at all. There's some things that can be done better with technology. And there's some things that require personal attention. And I have to tell you, my company sends email and text messages, and I love technology. But I will tell you, you can send 1,000 messages to someone, but you will never touch anyone the same way as you would with a handwritten note. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be a lot. And if you have a stack of cards, no one is going to sit down, get up, go find a card and write a random card to a patient. But if they have a stack of cards on their desk, and if there's a policy, or I hate the word policy, I call it the P word. But if you have a system in your practice where every employer will think of one patient, at least every employee with a desk. I mean, I understand for clinical employees, it's sometimes difficult to even find time to pee, or have a yogurt. It's like hygienists, they're like back to back to back. They barely have enough time for a California mandated break. But the front office employees, they have a desk, they have a pen, they have a stack of cards. And once a day, one of them has to send a card to a patient who maybe touched them, who made them feel great about doing their job. It's both ways, by the way. We get feedback from our patients, and I don't mean literally feedback like reviews or questionnaires back, or we get charged from patients who make us feel good, right? And so, who made you feel good today? Why not just send them a quick note and say, hey, you know what? Thanks for making my day. And
Yep,
just the impact of that. Sorry, go ahead.
That's a great advice, because I see, for example, if I bring a patient a blanket, or I put my hand on their shoulder, telling them everything is going to be all right. I had a patient actually had a panic attack during an extraction the other day. People are very receptive of that, and then those type of things end up in your reviews, and people talk about it, and it's very important. It makes a difference. So from a dentist, from an inside person that can give an advice, how would you go about choosing the right software? How would you tell the person that's still using the flip phone, and there's a few of them out there, to change over to an iPhone or an Android or something like that? How would they choose the right product?
So there are a lot of products out there, right? And one of the mistakes that I see, and I have to point this out just because I see it on daily basis, is that someone will try to make a list of all of the features, and they're gonna, and this is the scientific brain, in us, we'll say, okay, this is yappy, and this is blah blah blah, and this is, and then you could, the list is longer and longer and longer every year because there are more and more companies, so what happened is, we, like, if you go back 10 years, we were the paperless software, and then there was an appointment reminder software, and then there was a phone software, and then over the years, everyone kind of started to work towards each other, and because our customers don't want to use 500 different software. So yeah, now has a phone assistant which works with either a voice over IP or even a landline through a special caller ID. It has appointment reminders, it has reviews, it has paperless solutions. So all of those things wrapped into one package, or it can be a la carte, whatever you want. But the point is, someone would want to sit down and make a list of everything that Yappy does and how does it compare to what everyone else does. And there's so many different features, so many different prices, so many different people telling them, I have a great experience with XYZ software, and it's just confusing, right? But here's the deal. Anyone you talk to will say the same thing. I am just using 20% of the software. Like, what practice management software do you have in your practice? Dentrix, probably. In California, it's Dentrix.
I don't I when I was back in Illinois, I learned about this web-based curved software,
Yes,
and I'm going to compare it to yours as well at some point. But I've had that just because I was also very mobile and traveling a lot to document my cases. But there were so many out on the. It's kind of like continuing education, and like the implant companies. There's not 1,200 implant companies on the world roster.
exactly.
Um, so it's very hard for our colleagues, because one person will tell them Dentrix is the greatest. But when I was working with Dentrix, they didn't have this solution. So I left Dentrix, and then I looked at EagleSoft, and then it was Planet DDS, and then it was Curve. So I've looked at a lot of different ones, and you never know what the better one is going to be, because
But you see, you
some of them
said
are.
something that kind of answered your question. You said curve because I was mobile. And that's exactly where I was going with it. And I appreciate you saying this because, you know, 80% of your value is going to come from 20% of the features. So don't compare feature by feature by feature. Over time, features will change. My software engineers don't sleep. First of all, they work at night. They never sleep. There's always whatever you see right now on the market. There's a bunch of other features being developed. Some of it will never even hit the market. We've developed some things that we never ended up releasing, and then we've developed some things that were like the best thing that we've ever done. So there's always development. Here's what you do: you identify what's most important to you, and then you find the one solution that does it the best. And then everything else will fall around it. So, for example, if going paper, everyone does appointment reminders. We do appointment reminders. My grandmother, if she were alive, she'd probably have an appointment reminder company. So, in general, people have, who own these companies, they kind of got the appointment reminders down. Don't choose on the features of appointment reminders, but we're known for paperless. So if paperless is your objective, we're the best. If maybe reviews are an objective, we do reviews. We do them very well. I use mine. And if you Google, not my name, but the name of my practice, Dentistry for Kids and Adults, in Santa Clarita, you will see we have hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews on across different websites. Those come from my. I'd like to think that we deserve them, but I do use my own solution to generate those reviews. But the point is, there are others that are known for just reviews. So, if you don't have Yappy, but you want reviews, there are other options. So the point is, what's important to you? For you, mobility was critical. So Dentrix is out. Because by the time or at least at the time, right now, you can have, there are better technological solutions where you can have on-premises software and still use it as a mobile solution. But back when I was choosing my software, LogMeIn was, still pretty primitive. And if mobility was critical, then Dentrix wouldn't have been your best option, but Curve was. Even though, there,
the time, yes, I agree with you. They didn't have the. That's very good advice. I appreciate that. Before I get into something you like, which is quotes, and I got one for you today. I pulled it up. Another topic I wanted to touch up on is to be the ultimate CEO of a practice, you have to have a good relationship with your employees, right? And you, having had many, know that vast majority, this 80-20 rule I like a lot that you said it applies to your income. Your 20% top 20% patients bring you the top 80% of your income, and team building, it becomes very important, right?
right.
So 80% of my issues were HR related. When do I get a raise? And then the question becomes, am I training this staff individual? Are they going to leave me? Am I going to be in a bad situation? Maybe I should turn around and give them that raise. But some people are blunt, and when a relationship is time to let it go, they let go of it. So here's what Henry Ford said, and you love quotes, right?
I do.
The only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. So here's the dilemma. How do you handle the catastrophe of having to leave an employee go? And what is your take on the importance of team building for being a respected CEO in your practice?
Excellent question. So, first of all, I absolutely 100% agree with that quote. And yes, it's very difficult when you invest your time and your energy and your, money to send someone to a course or to a number of courses and have them train. And then either they leave on their own or you have to help them leave. It's disheartening. It's scary. And you're thinking, okay, I just sent someone to a course and I wasted a lot of money. And sometimes you're like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll hold on to them so at least I get my money back. It doesn't work this way. The training is important. And I think I mentioned this, when we hire someone in a dental practice, we're typically looking for someone who's experienced, and then we put them on the phone right away. We have no idea what their experience was. In my software company, you're not going to answer the phone for 6 weeks until you go through training. And even then, it's not perfect. I listen to those phone calls, and believe me, sometimes I go like, ugh, and that's with training.
Question. Is that part of your protocols that you build? Do you give it to the employee to read, or is it something that you train with them over time and go chapter by chapter? Or how do you handle that?
We both. Both in the software company and the dental office, we have multiple training resources. In the software company, we actually have kind of one-on-one training. We have training videos. We're using, in fact, my employees, that's Mila, she's crawling
Yes.
up to the desk to
Cute.
get some paper.
Cute.
So we have even my non-dental employees at the software company go through some dental training, because when they talk to offices, I want them to speak the same language. So they know teeth numbers, they understand insurance, not to a point that they can bill it, but they understand how dental insurance works. My software doesn't even handle insurance, but again, it's important to me that my employees at the software company, when they talk to dentists, they speak the same language. They understand what the conversation is about, because we're talking about workflow. They come to my practice before we hire them. They go through some internal training, we make sure it's the right person, and then they come to my practice and they just spend a day at the front. They don't work, they just sit there, they ask questions. And by the way, if they don't ask questions, they're probably not going to work out. That's how like if someone is going through training and they're just like a passenger on the bus, they're not going to work out. And sometimes you have to let people go. I had a situation recently where I sent some employees, and friend of mine, I got to know her originally on Dental Town, Sandy Purdue from Classic Practice Resources. I've learned so much from her.
Nice lady.
She's an incredible lady, very generous, shares her resources very freely. I admire people like that. Some people are like just figuring out a way to, they've learned a couple of things and they figure out a way to monetize it right away. And like, okay, you need to join my membership and club. And some people just freely give away their information. And again, this is one of those things that I said earlier. You do things right for the right reasons, and it all comes back to you in a very rewarding way, both financially and personally, emotionally. But to go back to what I was talking about, so I had some employees go to Sandy's course, which we do twice a year. I send several of my employees who work on the front, who work on the phones, to Sandy's training in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is a long schlep from California. And some of those people have been there twice, 3 times. Some of them no longer work with me. But I had this one lady go, it was probably October last year. She just came from the course, and then unfortunately she had an altercation with another employee, and I had to let both of them go. And yes, it was like, she just paid for her airfare, and I paid for her hotel, and she just got trained. And she was a great employee otherwise. But it was this conflict that we couldn't get past. We couldn't resolve it. We tried to work with both of them. It just, it had to be done. It was a tough decision. But here's the thing, you can't let someone stay in your practice if they're not the right person. Why do we have employee issues? Well, first of all, people are hard, right? Like if it wasn't for employees or the patients, we could really get some work done in our dental practice, right? It's the patients and the employees that are giving us most of the headache, unfortunately. But the truth is that also the people that do the work and pay our bills. So we kind of have to deal with it. It's very tempting to say, you know what, maybe she's not so bad. Maybe I can no, you stand for what you tolerate. The minute you accept bad behavior, the minute you're saying that behavior is okay with me. Yeah, go ahead. Everyone should act this way because I'm obviously okay with that if this person is behaving this way and is allowed to stay. And it was actually my office manager and her kind of second in command who's the billing manager, they came to me and they said, you know what, it's a tough decision. It's going to be hard on us, but we're going to work evenings, weekends, whatever. They're both moms. And they said, well, we'll do whatever we have, but we can't let this person or these two people, I had to let two people go at the same time. We can't let them stay here at the front because of this conflict. It's going to infect others. And it's been time and time again that I've, proven to myself that, in fact, the bad apple spreads to everyone else. One negative employee will drive the morale down of the entire team down by 30%. It's actually been measured. I keep wanting to find that research. I don't remember where that came from, but that's absolutely true. And once you let go of the negative people and you train the good people, then things become easier. This team management thing is really not difficult because guess what? We're not managing anything. You can't manage people. You can't motivate people. People are self-motivating. When people wake up in the morning, they're either motivated or they're not. And trust me, very few people get in their car in the morning or get up in the morning, take a shower, do their hair, apply their makeup in a red traffic light, driving to your office thinking, I'm going to screw things up today really badly. I'm gonna just make a mess of things and I'm gonna misbehave and I'm gonna do the least possible. No, we don't. No one does that. It's not human nature. We want to do well. We want to go to work and we want to excel and we want to be praised for doing the right things. We want to step up. We want to express, we want to volunteer for things. We want to grow. No one wants to have the same job for the last 30 years. Why do we have turnover? Why do people leave? If they don't move, why do they leave? For $2 more? Well, I can pay you $2 more if you do more. How do I get you to do more? I get you training. If you have the right person who has, we talk about office culture and morale and motivating employees. You have your core values, right? We mentioned core values earlier. So you have your vision. Your employees have to understand your vision, right? If we expect them to go to work every single day and build us the practice of our dreams, they need to see what we see. Our vision has to trickle down to them, right? So if they understand our vision and they're consistent with our core values, I mean, why would I hire someone who doesn't believe in what I believe and then try to change their mind? Same thing with associates. I think I told you earlier, I don't hire a doctor so that I could tell him or her how to do dentistry. I wrote this 36-page, what I call clinical philosophy. And before I hire someone, when I make them an offer, I give it to, or I email it to them and I say, read this. If you're not on board with any of this, and I graduated from USC. I mean, I'm very in the box. I'm not doing anything incredibly different than what we've learned at USC, standard of care, everything pretty much by the book. Obviously when I went to USC, we didn't do posterior composites. I mean, there was like, no, you do amalgam. And I remember someone said, oh, you have a perfect class too. Can I use you for the board? And I said, I don't, I'm vain. I'm like, no, I don't want a silver filling because I don't want it to show when I smile. And he's like, I'll put a composite later, but don't tell Dr. So-and-so because, posterior composites were frowned upon at the time. Really,
yeah, I was there.
Myself, right? So, but what I'm saying is, there's nothing unusual about the way I do dentistry, but I want to communicate the way I see things, the way I what my clinical philosophy is before anyone comes to work with me. Because if it's not for them, don't take the job. If you think, if your philosophy is different, then find a practice where you're in agreement with the practice owner. I'm not going to stand and look over your dentistry. I'm not going to tell. I'm happy to mentor. If you have a question for me, I'll answer. If I think I can teach you something, I will suggest something. But I'm not going to, hold your feet to the fire and demand that you do things my way. That's it's easier for me to hire someone who thinks the same way that I do. And the same thing with employees. If they need to embody my core values, and then I don't have to retrain them. Then I don't have to hold them accountable and motivate anyone. I don't have time to motivate anyone. I can barely motivate myself and my children and my poodle. So
Yeah, I don't know how you do that plus all these other things, but it's working.
it's
Um,
working, and I have to tell you, the reason it's working is because I don't do all that much. I'm busy. I'm busy, but I have wonderful people around me, and these people do wonderful things that somehow help me get to where I need to go. And the reason is because they understand where I'm going. They understand where I want to be. Everyone on my team, and maybe sometimes you hire someone, it doesn't work out. You think they have your core values, they answered all your questions correctly, and you think, okay, I got this is the right person, and then you find out it's not the right person, so you let them go, right? But anyone who's been with me for a long period of time is someone who thinks and functions the way that I do. They understand my vision. They're happy
it's
to
a
be
great
on
vision.
my team, and they're educated. We do they're growing, and it's nice to have a larger practice in that sense where people can grow into different positions, but sometimes growth can also be personal, right? The more you know, type of deal. And I talked to you.
Experience, Doc. Experience trumps all. I
Absolutely.
mean, yeah, at the end, but our colleagues can benefit from people like yourself, full of knowledge, ball of energy, to take lessons for themselves, so they don't have to make the experiences that you might have made or I might have made in the years that we've been at it in private practice. I totally agree with you.
I've done all the wrong things. I mean, there's no need for the learning curve for everyone else. Learn from my mistakes. I have no shortage of them.
Yes, I completely agree with you. But those are sometimes the next time you encounter the same situation, you think twice before taking the same action, or it would be pure insanity. So you quote Mother Teresa and Gandhi in your podcast. They're selfless people that get up every day and help others. You have accomplished so much. What's the end vision, Doc? Where are you wanting to take a career?
Uh, I don't know. And by the way, yes, I do quote famous people, and I'd like to say that I'm not one of them. I'm not selfless at all. And I think that's my point. I think that's my friend Dave Maloli, Relentless Dentist podcast. One of the first podcasts that I was on, that and Howard Ferentz podcast. And I've been on Relentless Dentist multiple times. He's incredible. Just he's a coach, and he's just such a wise person, and I love talking to him, which I think you could tell like an hour and a half later of me just rambling on different things. But the thing is that I'm not selfless at all. I am, first of all, I'm having the time of my life. I'm enjoying this, I'm enjoying running a practice. I'm busy, and yes, I have bad days, but I'm enjoying all this. And secondly, I'd like to say that, I am selfless, and I do all those things to help others. But the reality is, it's all helping me. I'm having a very nice life because of some things that I've accidentally done correctly. And I'd like to acknowledge this. So it's not selfless at all.
No, I mean, with selfless, at some point, you're just helping others with what you have learned, and that's a very noble thing in dentistry. A lot of our colleagues, they live out their careers and they go out, and that's it. And we have some that are relentlessly working to improve processes, systems, help colleagues, hire associates, and all of the wonderful things you do in our community, and giving us the raw and the bad apples in the office.
But I
Rotten
love
apples.
doing this. So what's next? I don't know, but I do have an article that I have to write that I promised to finish. So I'm going to finish that article, and then I'll think about the future plans. I don't know. A lot of the things that happen were never part of the plan. Plans don't work out. Sometimes you plan on something, and then life takes you in a different direction. The nice thing with me is that I'm easy to, I pivot easily. So I don't need. I guess what's the word? Quick start. So whatever life brings me, I'll tackle it. And I'll have fun doing it probably.
That's wonderful. So, Doc, do you have? I was looking at your pricing because I was interested in Yappy, and it's very, very reasonable. No contracts, a very reasonable fee a month, in the hundreds, and a couple of $100. Do you have like trial scenario where our colleagues can go or test write the software a little bit? Anything like that?
We have, okay, so we don't have a full-on trial. We have something called I guess we call it a test pilot, where you can actually download an app on the iPad, and you can play with the form, so you can kind of get a feel for what the app feels like, what a patient experience will be, filling out those forms on an iPad and kind of practice with it. But otherwise, it's a pretty, it takes a lot from the beginning for the practice to really customize it, to work it in a way that it's really, it's not just, I mean, anyone can give you a web form, right? So it's not just a web form, it's an app, and it's tightly integrated with your practice management software. It's tightly customized. It's not just, oh, let's upload your logo. We customize the forms. We customize the workflow. We have to train the team because it does a lot. So you can't really call it the trial period, because you get really invested in
Some
it.
people like to touch, feel, kind of get an idea. I love products that are made by dentists. It's kind of like Donald Trump screaming off the top of his lung, "Buy American, buy American," right? So, so I love products that are made by dentists, wherever they may be from, on the world scale. But you created this product because you understand our challenges. You've been out, you've talked to doctors, you've had doctors around you, so it makes more sense. But it would be good if doctors could. So, is there a way? How would you recommend they reach out to you for those that are interested in exploring your software? Because I see it's also you can integrate with multiple existing softwares to like the big ones, Dentrix and all the others. I believe I saw that it's compatible with EagleSoft, Open Dental, PracticeWorks, and so on. So who do they call to get a demo or schedule an appointment? They go to yappyapp.com, I believe, right?
Yes, yappyapp.com. They can request a demo online. We have webinar style demos. We have personalized demos. Obviously, that's all complimentary. We have follow-up calls where, they might have watched the demo, but they still have some questions about how the software works. And again, even during that call, we really customize their experience, because remember, they're not just salespeople that you'll be talking to. They actually sit in the dental office at the front for at least, we have some employees that are coming from the dental field. Some of my former assistants are actually doing the training at Yappy.
Oh,
So we talk
a big family, one big family, huh?
one big family. It's just a family run business. My husband and I work together. My dad is
That's
still.
Dr. Dorfman, the gentleman I read about, the big Dr. Dorfman.
No. It's my husband is not a dentist. We started together when I started my practice. He was helping me start the practice, and he worked there for a little while when we first opened, and then now he started working with the software company when we opened the company. So.
Yeah, he's a doctor, the technology expert, the Dr. Dorfman, right?
No. That's you thinking Bill Dorfman? No.
Well, I'm Dr. Alec Dorfman.
Oh, Alec Dorfman, yes, but he's not a dentist.
Right. He's a technology expert.
That's my dad.
And
That's my
yeah,
dad.
yes. Wow. No. I know the other Dorfman too. I know you guys weren't directly related.
Yeah. Well,
You
because
guys have a good name in dentistry, the Dorfmans.
everyone is like, are you related to Bill Dorfman? I'm like, I wonder if Bill is being asked if he's related to me.
Yes, maybe that's what's going on now.
I need to
Uh,
find out. I met him probably, I want to say maybe 2007 is the year that I met him. I need to circle back and see if by now people are asking about.
Also a great influencer like yourself. So, Doc, if you, I mean, I would love to have more conversations with you in the years to come. You're still at the midst of our careers. So, I'm sure we're going to be doing more of these. But for the time being, if you, as a last message, if you had one message to give to a younger colleague about something you've done wrong or you would have done differently or you would do now in the ever changing environment of dentistry, what would that be?
Hmm. Okay, so it's gonna be really quick, and it's gonna be a multi-answer type of deal. Okay, so first of all, learn how to do basic dentistry really, really well. As a young doctor, it's very easy to get distracted by shiny objects. Invisalign, great. Sleep apnea, wonderful. All of those things, please do it. I have to tell you, once I started learning sleep apnea, it's like you see things that you can't unsee anymore. And once you can't unsee it, you understand all of the failures, clinical failures that you experience. Now you understand so much more. You become a much better dentist. I started doing ortho maybe about 10 years ago, and I've completed over 100 cases, traditional ortho, mixed dentition. And I don't do ortho anymore, but I understand occlusion so much better as a result of it. I never went to paying people or,
Dawson and those guys.
Dawson. Yeah, I never done those courses, but because of ortho, I understand occlusion so much more. I'm actually looking at are those from Linick? Those great. Those are great. The ones that you have on your wall.
Oh, the drawings. Yeah, my wife is very keen on keeping the art around here very
I love.
upscale and related.
I was appreciating the anatomy while we were talking. And so, of course, all those things are important, but in the beginning, become really proficient at the basic things, extractions, endo, and maybe placing implants would be the next best thing. And because this is a great service, you have someone coming in pain, you can pull a tooth, you can do endo, you can place an implant. And this is what, you're not going to make money on doing prophies, right? I mean, they're a necessary evil, but this is not where, and then you get creative. You need to sell stuff to patients. You have, all of a sudden you have like a product cabinet. You're running around the office with toothbrushes. You're pushing, Invisalign, which is great. I do a lot of Invisalign. I love Invisalign. I do other types of clear clear aligners as well. But the point is, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is endo, oral surgery, get people out of pain, treat them well. This is a practice builder. This is a practice builder more than anything else. Learn the business of dentistry, or just business. Learn business. Business is business is business. Don't tell me, oh, but my practice is. Look, I started the practice from scratch in a very busy Southern California. You go in Dental Town, anyone says Southern California, 50 people chime back with, oh my God, you have to move. Why would I move? I live here. My family is here. My kids are here. My poodle is here. My German Shepherd is here. Where am I going? It's possible to do well here. You just need to have the basic business skills. And you can learn them. And there's no shortage of information. There's YouTube, there are books, there are inexpensive courses. Dental Success Network is one of them. I have a free course on DSN that talks about all the stuff that we just talked about, the hiring, you get what you expect. What was the other one that I said? You stand for what you tolerate. All those concepts, those are part of my lecture on DSN. It's a free course. Join Dental Success Network. There are other courses on there. Some are paid, some are free. A lot of great information. A lot of our colleagues are teaching courses, giving away information for free. It's out there. You just have to make a commitment to learn more. And that's my only message. It doesn't matter what you learn, keep learning, never stop learning.
That's a great message, and people can take this very far in their careers. Thank you for noticing the beautiful central fossa and the transverse ridges up there on that molar. I appreciate
I've
it.
been admiring it the whole time that we're talking.
Yeah, there is a if you were to put all of the anatomy verbiages they taught us, that whole white piece around it would be full of verbiage and names for different structures on that tooth. I recall from down school, but it was a a great honor to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you, and I was excited to actually conduct this interview and get your take on all of these issues that we face in the dental practice. And I really, really thank you for your time. Looking forward to having you on the show in the future so we can see what the state of the union is.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to come back anytime. I had a lot of fun. It was great talking to you. And I hope if anyone wants to reach out to me, please do. I'm very accessible.
Yes, if you'd like, I'd leave your information, your number, and email address underneath, and people can reach out to you as well if they have further questions about this interview. Thank you, Dr. Dorfman. I wish you a great evening. I know it's 8:15 Pacific time, and we're still at it. And have a wonderful night, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.